You know, everyone thinks being a famous internet star is all easy and fun and games and stuff, but it's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made.
You still haven't picked a hat yet, have you? It's not that serious, just pick one. No one cares. No one even remembers. No one even looks at it. What, you want this one? This one? They're all the same. Just pick a hat. Pick a hat! Gosh!
Yeah, it can get tense sometimes. It is not always easy. We all handle it in different ways, though.
Get the camera out of my face! Ultimately, we love what we do. It's not about the fame or the money, the recognition. Any comments yet?
Nothing yet.
Oh.
We take this seriously. Very seriously.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What? Nothing.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, yes. Booyah. Face Rockin with Jalen and Zell. Welcome. How you doing? Doing good? All right. Today we are talking about the idea of knowing what goes on behind the scenes of some sort of piece of entertainment, whether that's video game, movie, TV, whatever, comic books. Does that affect your viewpoint on the product as a whole? Can you be unbiased in receiving that product now after knowing what went on behind the scenes to making it come to fruition? And is it going to be a negative thing, a positive thing, or will it be both? So let's get into it.
Negative example first. Go.
Okay, let me give an example. Something that, like, negative as in it makes it worse. Okay, perfect example. Just happened. My mom watched the last Airbender movie. She was aware of the Avatar: The Last Airbender, the cartoon, but she didn't watch it a whole lot. She kind of saw it every now and then. Sometimes we were watching it. She watched the movie and was like, "Oh, the movie was all right." She didn't have a problem with the movie. We were like, "No, this movie's terrible." And Mom, you generally has good taste. So I was like, "This is terrible, Mom. You don't see that." So then she went back and watched the entire series all the way through because she started watching Legend of Korra and was enjoying it. So she said, "Let me go back and watch the original series all the way through." She went on Netflix and watched it straight through in a couple of days. She went back and watched the last Airbender movie, and now she agrees it is a very terrible movie.
Yeah.
So that is an example of knowing something about it beforehand. You know, that's just one of many examples. But because she knew, because now she knew what the original series was like, watching the movie, oh man, this movie is terrible. But without doing that, and there's some people who believe the movie was terrible even without knowing the original series. So, you know, that's just that. But, you know, but not seeing the series, the movie didn't have the same impact of being terrible. It was okay. So that's something where knowing the source material, where it came from, impacted it, you know. Yeah. So that's one thing. Now, what about...
I think I'll try to do a good example.
Okay.
I guess you might as well stay on Avatar for a second here. I can't think of anything else. But in the... help me say the name correctly of the new series. The Legend of Korra.
Yes.
Okay. Now, having watched the original series, The Last Airbender, watching it now, they do a lot of references to things that pop up. Like, the perfect example I can think of at the moment would be... Toph's daughter in the show. In the first Airbender series, you had Toph, who was like the best earthbender at the time. Her daughter now does a lot of things similar to her that if you didn't know that Toph started or did, you wouldn't understand. Like when Toph would stomp her foot on the ground and the shockwaves would go through the ground, and that's how she could tell. That's how she could see what was going on, basically, because she could, like, you know, kind of how a mole does on the ground, similar to that. Well, her daughter did the same thing in the new series. And you might just think, okay, I don't know why she did that, but because, you know, we've seen the original series, we know, oh yeah, that came from Toph. If you didn't, you wouldn't have known that. It's not a bad thing, but it's just kind of cool if you do know. Now you can say, oh yeah, and I know why she's doing that.
Yeah, and it raised the quality because we know that's something that Toph did. When her daughter did it, when Lynn did it, everybody, you know, I remember I was watching, I was like, oh, that was cool, that was Toph's thing, like that, and it got me more excited for the episode. So it increased the quality of the episode for me because I knew beforehand. It doesn't, on the flip side, it increased the quality for me because I knew that someone who might not have known that would have just been like, oh, okay, she did something.
You know? How about, I know it's probably kind of off of it in the sense of a back, like a, prior knowledge or something, but maybe something along the lines of like a it kind of like where a real world events affected or on culture and life affects your show. And it seems like, for instance, on Smallville, there was an episode during, I guess it was like the Justice League episode, or was it the Justice Society of America episode? One of those episodes when they were putting a bunch of superheroes into it, and one of the characters named Chloe, she came to Clark and said, "Yes, I've traveled and I met someone who I met a wondrous woman and a billionaire playboy who has a lot of gadgets."
Yeah.
So if anyone watching the show who didn't know comic references, they wouldn't have known that she was talking about Wonder Woman and that she was talking about Batman or Bruce Wayne. So we're hearing that say, "Oh, wondrous woman, okay, Wonder Woman, and billionaire playboy who has a bunch of gadgets. Oh, that's Batman."
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, okay, so because of having a knowledge of superheroes, I understood what her reference was. So I guess that made it better for fans
and see, that's the thing though.
Superheroes.
That's the thing though. Yeah, I remember the episode. Actually, it was like towards the last season when they did that. But when she made that comment, that line, the way she said it, Smallville's known for having a lot of corny lines. That line was extremely corny. But I didn't care about the corniness. I just liked the fact that they were mentioning that Wonder Woman and Batman exist in the Smallville universe. So it got me excited. I was like, cool, Wonder Woman, Playboy, the picture for gadgets, whatever. But in and of itself, that's a very terrible line. Like, really, that's just like terrible scripting. But I enjoyed it. Someone who has no idea what she was referring to would have been like, "What are you talking about? That was just terrible dialogue," you know? So you would need to be able to have the background to appreciate that line and to not think that was straight up terrible, you know? So then you begin to see creators actually do that. They will do fan service. They'll put things in their media that you have to have a background knowledge of something in order for it to mean something, in order for it to have an impact on you. You know, that's why when you see cameo guest stars and appearances, when someone makes an appearance and you know who they are, it makes them funnier, even if they aren't that funny.
True, because I could think of examples where I watched the show, and especially on like NBC with comedy, because they do it a lot.
Yeah.
And the person came in the first episode, and when I first saw that person in that episode at this different show, I had no idea who the person was. Then I go back and see them in something else. I come back, look at that episode, and I bust out laughing.
Yeah, as soon as they come on
it
camera.
wasn't that funny to me. I'm like, okay, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, oh, that's so and so. I start laughing because that's that actor who's a funny person from that show. So
because like it's this feeling of being in the in crowd, you know, like, oh, I know who you are. It's like a reference. I caught that reference. You get excited, you get happy.
TV shows are probably the best for that.
Yeah, and increase the quality of it because you know what that's referring to, so it's cool. Oh, that's pretty sweet.
Especially like Geek Community. Yeah, like if it's like an actor who did this, and then their role wasn't that big of a deal because they done all this stuff in geekdom. It's like, oh, now I know who they are.
Yeah, you just throw Will Wheaton in any show, and everybody gets excited. But if I don't know who that is, I'm not going to care. I'm going to be like, okay, nice to have you on the show. You know, I'll give you an example. Show Eureka. When Will Wheaton first came on the show, I didn't really know who he was at first. So I didn't really, his character was just there. But as soon as I knew who he was, I was like, oh, snap, Will Wheaton. And it made him funnier. But he didn't do anything differently. It was just now having the extra knowledge. So that's the point. Having knowledge, I don't think it's possible to be unbiased anymore. Now it's going to impact how you perceive something. And so when you look at movies coming out, I use Dark Knight Rises for an example. That's coming out soon. People looking behind the scenes, getting all this information, what's going on behind the scenes, every single move, every actor makes, every line the director says, everything. So now when you go to watch a movie, you have all this prior knowledge, and it's going to, I don't want to say warp, but it's going to affect your enjoyment of this. You can't just be unbiased anymore. But you know what's going on behind the scenes. If you're watching your favorite TV show, and one of the great writers behind the scenes left the show, and it was a very bitter breakup behind the scenes, and if you really like that writer, when you go to watch your show now and go into the next season, it's going to affect how you watch it. You're probably not going to enjoy it as much because you know what happened behind the scenes, and you're waiting to see something that's different or worse now because that great writer is gone. Where if you didn't know anything was going on behind the scenes, you might not really notice it, for real. I mean, you know, and that's something I think everybody, if you really think about it, you can look at things where you know what's going on behind the scenes, and so it affects how you perceive it and whether or not you enjoy it anymore, you know. So, I mean, and I think that happens a lot. And that happens with movies now. People say, are we ruining movies for ourselves because we see so much behind-the-scenes footage, so much people saying this and this comment.
Especially because of social media.
Yeah, it's very hard to, so,
tweet.
You know, so you get all these spoilers, blah, 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 all that stuff like that. So it affects how you perceive it, you know, so. Yeah. Okay, so let us know what you think. Do you agree that you really can no longer be unbiased once you know what's going on behind the scenes of a show, when you have prior knowledge of information of the source material, blah, 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 all different examples. Give us your own examples of, you know, experiences where you've had that way, where it affected your viewpoint on something. And, yeah, I believe that is all. So let us know what you think. Follow us on Twitter, Bonds Brothers. At the Barnes Brothers. Follow us on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Check us out on Tumblr as well, thebarnesbros.tumblr.com.
Yeah.
And I believe that is it. Check those links in the description. That's all. See you guys next time because your face has just been rocked.
Peace, guys.
I think you got something. When you cheat?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was just seeing things.
Get a load of this, nerd. Dark.